Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Allie Lamberski. I am a credit union training coordinator here at the Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion at the NCUA, and I will be the moderator for today's program on how to apply to the 2024 CDRLF grants. Before we begin, I do have just a few administrative announcements. If you're having any difficulty hearing my voice, please adjust the volume on your computer. If you're still having difficulty after adjusting the volume, please use the Q&A feature at the right-hand corner of your console to submit a request to our tech support team for assistance, and they'll be with you right away. In addition, please make sure that you do allow pop-ups on your computer to be able to have full visibility to all materials shown today. And in approximately 2 weeks, a recorded version of this webinar will be available for on-demand viewing on our learning management system. This material will feature closed captions as well as the ability to download a PDF version of today's PowerPoint presentation. Just a few items about the LMS. In order to access today's material, you do have to have an account. The good news is it is completely free to all credit union employees and volunteers, so there is no charge, and you will have access to over 200 courses available to you within 24 hours of registering. In order to access our LMS, please go to the ncua.gov website, select Support Services, further select Credit Union Resources and Expansion, and then select Learning. That will redirect you to the Learning Management System where you will be able to register. Before we begin, I do have just a brief disclaimer I must read out to you. The materials presented in this webinar are intended as an informative and educational summary of general information on applying to the Community Development Revolving Loan Fund Grant Round. The NCUA has taken reasonable measures to ensure the quality of the data and other information produced by the NCUA that's available in this presentation. The NCUA, however, makes no warranty, express or implied, nor assumes any legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, correctness, or completeness of any information that's available through this presentation, nor represents that its use would not infringe on privately owned rights. The slides are intended for educational and discussion purposes and do not constitute legal advice, nor replace independent professional judgments. Reference to any specific commercial product, process, or service by trade name, trademark, and manufacturer, or otherwise does not constitute an endorsement, recommendation, or favoring by the U.S. government or the NCUA. This is the agenda for today's webinar. I will be handing the presentation over to Martha Ninachuk, who is the Director of the Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion, for introductory remarks on our webinar today, before I introduce our speakers and turn it over to them for their presentation on how to apply for the 2024 CDRLF grant round. We will also have time today this afternoon for a brief question and answer session before providing closing remarks as well as contact information. Like I mentioned today, because we will be having time for a Q&A session, I do encourage you to please submit questions throughout this presentation for our panel that will be joining me here today. Before we begin, I do have just a brief polling question I would like to ask, just to have a better idea of who is going to be joining us today on our webinar. Our polling question is, what asset range best represents your credit union? A, up to 50 million, B, 51 to 250 million, C, 251 to 500 million, D, 501 to 1 billion, E, over 1 billion, or F, not a credit union. Please take a moment to answer this question so we have an idea of who's joining us today. All right, thank you so much, everyone. It looks like we have a great mixture of credit unions here today, so I hope that you will all find this presentation very helpful. I'm now going to turn it over to Martha Ninachuk, Director of the Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansions, for today's opening remarks.
Thank you, Allie, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a great time of year. Spring is here, the flowers are blooming, and also, most importantly, our Community Development Revolving Loan Fund grant program has opened. It's a culmination of efforts that brings us to this point in time. The NCUA is the only federal regulator that receives congressional appropriations for grants. Within the appropriations language, Congress specifies credit unions holding the NCUA's low-income designation are the institutions that are eligible for funding. The reason for this designation is it ensures NCUA the appropriation is used in the intended markets, which are low wealth populations. So once we receive the appropriation, a flurry of activity starts to happen. CURE staff develop the various grant initiatives that address specific credit union challenges or funds to assist in their outreach efforts. Those initiatives are then provided to the NCUA board for their input. So the board actually takes a look at the initiatives, makes sure that we're on the right track, that we're identifying what are those challenges and how best can we help credit unions use those funds in their outreach efforts. Once the grant initiatives are finalized, a notice of funding and opportunity is posted in the Federal Register. Staff writes the grant guidelines. The updates are made to our web page, and we're ready for the grant round to open. And here we are. The kickoff is today. For any other information that you're interested in on previous grant rounds, we publish an annual congressional CDRLF report that's available on our webpage. It's interesting facts. It's you can see what the grant appropriation amount was, how much credit unions asked for, and then some examples of how the grant initiatives were used. So we have some examples of credit unions that actually received grant funding. That's all available on our grant webpage on ncua.gov. So we really hope this webinar is informative and answers all of your questions about this year's grant round. If not, as Allie said, we have a Q&A session at the end, so make sure you populate questions throughout the webinar as you think of them. If something comes to mind while you're actually applying for a grant, do not hesitate to reach out. You can contact us through cureapps@ncua.gov, and that web page or information is available at the end of this presentation, so you'll be able to jot down our email. So again, thank you so much for participating today. We hope you really enjoy the webinar, and a big hats off to my staff who work very hard to get the grant round up and running, and also to the training team who developed the materials for today. Ellie, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Martha, and thank you for the fantastic opening remarks. I am delighted to introduce both of our speakers here today. Joining us are Josh Krantz and Jimmy Curtis, who are members of our grants team to discuss the application in detail. Jimmy Curtis is currently the grant administrator for the Community Development Revolving Loan Fund with the NCUA's Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion. Jimmy has recently joined the NCUA in February 2024 after having previously worked with the federal grant programs at multiple agencies, to include the U.S. Agency for International Development and the U.S. Department of Labor. Joshua Krantz is currently the program manager of the Community Development Revolving Loan Fund with the NCUA's Office of Credit Union Resources and Expansion. Josh joined the NCUA in December 2018 and has previously worked on federal grant programs at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the Community Development Financial Institutions Fund. Through the CDRLF, Josh and the Grants and Loans team provide low-income designated credit unions with technical grants and loans to build their capacity and reach underserved communities. Josh and Jimmy, welcome, and I am excited to hear your presentation.
Hello, and thank you, Ali. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this important webinar on how to apply to the 2024 CDRLF grants administered by NCUA. We are excited to announce that the 2024 CDRLF grant round is now open for applications through July the 1st, 2024. Before we talk about which applicants are eligible to apply and the types of grant initiatives available this year, we would like to provide a general overview of the CDRLF grant program. When we refer to specific grant initiatives, like the Training Grant Initiative or the MDI Capacity Building Grant Initiative, please note that each initiative is essentially just a category or type of CDRLF grant with individual characteristics. First, CDRLF stands for Community Development Revolving Loan Fund, and the purpose of the CDRLF program is to assist low-income designated credit unions with providing basic financial services to their members and to stimulate economic activities in their communities. Through this program, the NCUA aims to provide financial support through technical assistance grants to eligible credit unions to accomplish the following goals: help eligible credit unions modernize their operations, and help credit unions build their internal capacity while also extending their outreach into underserved communities. These goals are met through the award of CDRLF grants that are made available on an annual basis through congressional appropriations, low-interest loans that help eligible credit unions meet the evolving needs of their members and communities, and urgent need grants that help eligible credit unions respond to unexpected emergencies or pay for certain startup activities for newly chartered credit unions. So, to be eligible to apply to the 2024 CDRLF grants, your credit union has to be low-income designated. While we won't do a detailed review of the low-income designation process here, it is important to note that to qualify as a low-income designated credit union, a majority of a credit union's membership must meet certain low-income thresholds based on data from Census Bureau, in addition to requirements outlined in the NCUA's rules and regulations. Please note that you can find more information about low-income designation on our NCUA low-income designation webpage and through the contact information provided at the end of this presentation. Please also note that there are asset caps associated with some of the grant initiatives. We will highlight those caps later in this presentation. There are also CAMELS ratings requirements for each grant initiative, and those requirements are detailed in the 2024 CDRLF grant application guidelines that are posted on our NCUA grants website. We recommend you review that guidelines document to become more familiar with what those CAMELS requirements are and to gain a much deeper understanding of the 2024 CDRLF grant round. In addition to being a low-income designated credit union and adhering to any grant initiative specific asset requirements, your credit union must be registered in SAM.gov. Simply put, all organizations doing business with the federal government, and that includes applying to grants, must register for a SAM.gov account. SAM.gov is an official website of the U.S. government with free registration. However, it may take several weeks to get registered after pulling together all of the required documents. Our recommendation is that you start the SAM.gov registration process as soon as possible if you have not already. Please also note that organizations must revalidate their SAM registration every 12 months to ensure proper validation. Please direct any specific questions about the SAM.gov registration process to the Federal Service Desk. You can find the contact information for the Federal Service Desk by using the help function on the SAM.gov website. So, one really important point that I want to make before we discuss each one of the initiative types that I referred to earlier is that for the 2024 grant round, each interested and eligible credit union should decide the one initiative that they want to apply for, and then only submit one application to that one initiative. Please do not submit more than one application as part of this 2024 grant round because any applications received from a credit union after the first application we receive from that credit union will be rejected. Another really important point that I want to highlight is although this year's grant round closes on July the 1st, 2024, the last day to contact the NCUA with inquiries about this grant round is June the 24th, 2024, which is 1 week prior to the close date. The Notice of Funding Opportunity and the application guidelines note that you should send any inquiries about this grant round before June 24th to cureapps@ncua.gov or the Cure contact number provided at the end of this presentation. Now that we have covered what it takes for a credit union to be eligible to apply to the 2024 CDRLF grants, we will discuss each grant initiative type that is open for interested and eligible credit unions to apply. Let's start with the training grants first. So the training grants have a maximum award amount of $5,000, and only eligible credit unions with assets up to $100 million can apply. The training grants focus on strengthening credit unions through succession planning and professional development. Some examples of activities a credit union might use this grant for are to enroll their board members, executives, and employees in training courses. They could also be used to develop a management succession plan or create a career track strategy for mid-level career employees, or for training courses that help entry and mid-level employees enhance their operational knowledge. Next, we will talk about digital services and cybersecurity initiative grants. The maximum award for these grants is $10,000, and eligible credit unions with assets up to $250 million can apply. Digital services and cybersecurity grants provide funds to enhance the protection of the credit union and its members against potential cyber attacks, to increase the access of low-income and underserved communities to fair and affordable digital financial products and services, and to acquire software and equipment needed to support a remote work posture or product and service delivery. Some examples of the types of activities a credit union would use these digital services and cybersecurity grants for are developing interactive websites, implementing mobile applications, purchasing equipment that supports remote working capabilities, as I just referred to, cybersecurity training expenses, or procurement of software and hardware for cybersecurity upgrades. The list of examples I just provided is not exhaustive, and again, we strongly recommend that you review the 2024 grant guidelines on our NCUA grants webpage for more examples. Moving on, now we will talk about the Consumer Financial Protection Initiative grants. The maximum award amount for these grants is $10,000, and eligible credit unions with assets up to $500 million can apply. Consumer Financial Protection grants provide credit unions with resources to gain additional expertise to better ensure their members are financially protected. Credit unions have used these Consumer Financial Protection grants in the past for staff training on consumer financial protection issues and to review their products and services to ensure they are in compliance with existing consumer protections, laws, and regulations. Next up are the Underserved Outreach Grants. So these grants have a maximum award amount of $50,000, and there is no asset cap in place for eligible credit unions to apply. Underserved Outreach Grants help credit unions implement innovative outreach strategies to increase access to financial products and services in underserved communities. The goal of that outreach is to improve the financial health of individuals in underserved populations by closing the wealth gap, increasing equity, and expanding economic inclusion. Some examples of possible activities that would be implemented under these grants would be developing outreach and marketing programs to assist the needs of low-wealth persons and households. For instance, activities like the translation of credit union materials into the native language of underserved populations, establishing partnerships with community groups, or expansion into new geographic areas or fields of membership. Other examples could include developing and implementing a safe, fair, and affordable financial product or program strategy to bring the unbanked and underbanked into the financial mainstream, or introducing or expanding a loan product to meet the needs of the credit union's membership. Just like with the Underserved Outreach Initiative grants, the Minority Depository Institution Capacity Building grants, which going forward I will refer to as the MDI Capacity Building grants, have a maximum award amount of $50,000, and they also do not have an asset cap. Please note that only those low-income designated credit unions that are also MDI designated are eligible for this initiative. The MDI Capacity Building grants provide funding to preserve low-income designated MDI credit unions and increase their ability to thrive and serve minority population. Just as I noted for the low-income designation, please note that you can find more information about the MDI self-designation process on our NCUA MDI Preservation webpage and through the contact information provided at the end of this presentation. On that MDI Preservation webpage, there are details about how credit unions self-designate as MDIs by answering the minority questions on the CU online profile. Now, back to these MDI Capacity Building grants. These grants may be used for eligible expenses associated with activities that include digitizing credit union records, training, implementing digital banking capabilities, responding to audit and regulatory failures, and member outreach. Finally, let's turn to the pilot grants from 2023. So the pilot grants from 2023 will be entering their second phase in a few months. We will continue to communicate directly with those grantees on the process involved with their Phase 2 awards, but please note that the 2024 funds for the Impact Through Innovation pilot grants are only available to those credit unions that received a 2023 CDRLF pilot grant. Now we'll turn it over to Josh to explain what a complete application consists of.
Thank you, Jimmy. In addition to the asset caps, maximum award amounts, and various activity types that Jimmy just discussed, all applications for CDRLF grants have these core common components. The first is organizational and contact information. Make sure that all of your credit union's organizational contact information are up to date. If anything has changed since your previous applications or in the last year, please submit a W-9 or an electronic fund transfer form along with your application. Second are the narrative. The narratives will vary based on the initiative type, but should describe the needs of the credit union and how the CDRLF grant funds will address these needs. We also ask that you include a budget, which is a line item estimation of how your funds will be used. And then finally, you should include performance metrics, which will measure the success of your program and demonstrate how the credit union has benefited from the CDRLF grant. We have published grant guidelines available on our website, which provides information for each initiative and its requirements in the application. I highly recommend that you review those application guidelines carefully. So now that we've covered application components, we will talk about how we review and evaluate applications that are submitted. As Jimmy noted earlier, credit unions applying for CDRLF funding must have low-income designation at the time of submitting their application. This is a requirement based on NCUA regulations. An active SAM account at the time of application submission is also required, and credit unions with an existing SAM registration must recertify and maintain an active status annually. SAM users can register or recertify their account by following the instructions for registration on the SAM website. Please note that there is no charge for SAM registration or the registration for recertification. Please note that we will also be hosting an informative webinar on May 22nd that explains the SAM.gov registration process in more detail. We'll also assess each credit union that applies from a compliance standpoint. Specifically, we will review a credit union's past adherence to reporting requirements and the ability to complete previous CDRLF grant projects. The NCUA may also assess a credit union's examinations or audit reports if a reviewer deems it necessary. This is important to note that points might be deducted from a credit union's project objective score based on the compliance review of the past CDRLF program performance. Another part of our evaluation process is to ensure that each application meets the CAMELS and asset limitation requirements based on the initiative being applied for. We recommend again that all credit unions carefully review the CDRLF grant application guidelines to see how asset size is considered and scored in line with the NCUA's priority for reaching credit unions most in need of funding. Eligible applications will then receive a score based on how well the following topics are addressed in the narrative, budget, and any supplemental documentation. We encourage interested credit unions to tell a complete story in their application. For instance, what is the need of the credit union, its members, and the underserved population? How will the grant funds be used to address these needs? And finally, what are the expected outcomes and the impact of the project on the credit union members and the underserved population? You can see here we are stressing a compelling narrative. So please do your best, as I said, to tell a complete story that will give us a very good idea of how you intend on using the CDRLF grant funds. Now we're going to go over an actual live example of a successful grant application. We're going to parse this in turn. First, you can see, there we go, that the credit union here immediately identified the needs of its credit union. So this is for a digital services and cybersecurity grant, and right off the bat, they state that auditors reported deficiency in the credit union cybersecurity program. They also state that the project will address these vulnerabilities in the credit union cybersecurity program and put the credit union and its members' information at risk, and secure the credit union and its members from being at risk. Second, the credit union discusses how this will be implemented through the testing of any vulnerabilities found in the credit union system. The funds will be used for IT risk assessment, network vulnerability assessment, and other information testing capabilities. And then finally, the credit union provides the expected outcome and how we can determine whether the project has been successful. They state that the expected outcome of this project will be significantly improved and fully compliant cybersecurity program, and that success will be determined through the testing results and the compliance of any auditor-related findings. We provide a detailed scoring rubric in the application guidelines, and I recommend that you make sure that you address all the points we highlight. I also recommend that while working on your application, that you show a draft of your narrative to a colleague and have them review the application as if they were us. This will give you a great idea of whether or not you are fully answering these questions. Now I'd like to go over what not to do. First, do not be vague. This is also a real example from an application that we received recently, and it's clear. It simply states, implement upgrades in remote banking and improve replacement time for debit cards. Unfortunately, we are not as familiar with your credit union as you are, so we don't understand why these are needs, why these are so critical, and how implementing this project will benefit your credit union members and the larger underserved community. Second, please make sure that you include all of your narrative in the designated text boxes and do not update any narrative in the additional supplemental documentation. You can see here, we received an application where the entire narrative said, refer to file attached. The supplemental documentation fields, it's a brief narrative and an upload, are not for project narrative. These are fields meant for information to support the project narratives, such as statistics, or to support the budget using some, documents such as quotes from potential vendors. And finally, we do want to make sure that you are applying for a new or expanded project. You cannot receive funding for a project for which you've already received funding. So if you applied for a digital service and cybersecurity grant in 2023 to conduct an IT audit, you cannot receive a digital service and cybersecurity grant in 2024 to conduct an IT audit. These grants are not intended to pay for ongoing operational costs. That being said, you can apply for a digital service and cybersecurity grant for implementing a new online banking program. I'd like to go over a quick budget example. You can see here, you would first select the project activity. So in this case, again, it's strengthening cybersecurity. And then you would have a line item for each item that you intend on spending CDRLF grants on. First, you will give us the total estimated project cost, which is how much it will cost your credit union to complete the project. And then you will demonstrate the amount of CDRLF funds that will be used to cover that cost. So you can see here, there is an IT risk assessment that will cost the credit union $4,050, and then several other line items that add up to a total of over $11,000. For digital services and cybersecurity, the maximum amount that we will be providing is $10,000. So you'll have to distribute the $10,000 across your project activities, and you'll be responsible for anything over the maximum award amount. The goal of this budget is to help us understand the scope of your project. And next slide. Finally, we ask that you submit 2 performance metrics from the list in this slide, which will be used to measure the success of your project. While some project activities can be directly linked to a performance goal or other activity, some may relate indirectly. Applicants must explain in their narrative how the grant will help the credit union meet these selected metrics and accomplish the greater goals of the project. We recommend being realistic in determining your performance metrics and goals, as they should be attainable by the end of the performance period of September 2025. If the application leads to a grant award, the credit union will be asked to enter a benchmark for this metric at the time of approval. It's also important for me to state that the system will allow you to submit an application if you only select one metric. However, your application will be considered incomplete and will not be approved. So please read the application guidelines carefully and make sure you are filling out your application in its entirety. I'd also like to stress that it is not uncommon for these metrics to not neatly apply to the objectives of your project. For example, conducting cybersecurity assessments may not have a direct impact on membership or loan growth. For these instances, you can create a metric such as penetration testing completed and give it a yes or no data point type. At the end of the grant project, you would then simply indicate whether or not the project, that particular activity has been completed. We're now going to move on with a demonstration of our application system.
Thanks, Josh. So now, like Josh said, we're going to walk through the application steps where I pretend to be an eager and excited applicant with Josh playing the role of a guide who will help walk me through the process. Alrighty, Josh, I'm very excited to get started on this 2024 CDRLF grant application. Thank you so much for all of your help. I just logged into Cyber Grants. I'm new to this. Someone else did it last year, so please bear with me as I walk through this process. What should I do next?
Well, first, I'd like to give you a little tour of what we call the welcome page. It starts with an overview of the CDRLF program. So if you happen to fall asleep when we were talking earlier, you can catch up at that time. As you scroll down, you'll see a section called Resource Documents. This houses important information which will help you apply for and manage your CDRLF grant or loan throughout the lifetime of the award. It also contains links to our guidelines and other very important documentation. As you continue to scroll down the page, you'll see the current applications that we have available. You can see that we have an urgent need application and a CDRLF loan application, and those are open year round. You'll also see the 2024 CDRLF grant round, which is what we're talking about today. Before you click on that link to start an application, though, you can see as you continue down, you may see a section called Post-Award Activities Requiring Action or Applications Requiring Action. That is just going to be anything that is in your queue. If you have a previous award or if you've started an application and saved and come back to continue it at a later time. So why don't you click on that 2024 CDRLF grant application link and we'll get started.
Got it. Thank you, Josh. This is great information to know. So I'm going to go ahead and select this 2024 grant application. All right. I'm in here in the application now.
Great. The first thing you'll need to do is you'll need to have your unique entity identifier or UEI number ready. The UEI number is provided by SAM.gov. You will be given this number once you have an active registration in SAM. If you don't have an active registration in SAM, visit SAM.gov. The NCUA does not administer SAM and cannot provide assistance with your registration. So for any help, contact the Federal Service Desk at fsd.gov and make sure you attend our upcoming SAM.gov grants.gov webinar later this month that will provide an overview of the SAM.gov registration process.
Alrighty, so our SAM.gov account was set up about 3 years ago and has been updated every year since. So I think I'm good to go. I'll go ahead and click yes here. And actually it's already selected. So I'll select it again to show that our SAM.gov registration is active. Also, I actually see that our correct UEI, unique entity identifier, is already entered here. So, but I do want to check the UEI value to make sure that my SAM.gov and UEI are good to go. Oh, great. Okay, so it says it's a valid UEI number. All right, I think I'm ready to move on to the next step.
Okay, first, you'll need to select two contacts. One person will serve as the primary and another as a secondary. These are the people that the NCUA will contact for all things related to your application, such as the final decision on your application and all grant management requirements if an award is made.
So luckily I am the primary contact and my information is already here. I think I'll make the IT manager, Becky Hicks, the secondary contact because our lending manager purposely skipped this meeting to avoid having to help with this application. So let me go ahead and click on that. But I have a question. If I do want to create a new contact, do I just click on this create new contact button?
Yeah, that's correct. You'll be able to enter a new person and assign them as a primary or secondary contact.
Okay, all right, perfect. All right, so I don't need to do that right now, so I'll go ahead and click on Save and Proceed.
This is the organization information page. Does everything here look correct? Has the name, address, or banking information of your credit union changed? Any changes not addressed will impact the review of your application and will delay the processing of any potential payments when you submit a reimbursement request.
Got it. So it looks like the credit union name, charter number, all that information looks correct, but it looks like our banking information is not completely correct. How do I go about fixing that?
You can use the tabs along the top of the page to navigate throughout the application and back to the welcome page. Make sure you hit Save and Proceed so that you don't have to re-enter any information.
Yes.
What you'll do then is on the welcome page, you will find the W-9 and electronic fund transfer forms under the resource sections. You can download those templates and save them to your computer.
Got it. So when this form is complete, where will I know after I complete the W-9 where to actually upload it at?
Yeah, once you've completed these forms, you can access your application by scrolling to Applications Requiring Action and clicking Continue. You can use the navigation to go back to the organization information and then indicate that your organizational information needs to be updated. Select Yes, and you can upload the file there.
Okay, perfect. I'll go ahead and do that. And luckily, I already have the form completed. So I will find that form. There it is. And upload it. Okay,
Great.
perfect. So from here, I'll go ahead and click on Save and Proceed.
Great. This is the application form. The first thing you're going to want to do is to select the initiative for which you are applying. The questions that you see in the application will vary based on the initiative that you select. And remember, you can only apply for one grant. If you submit more than one application, we will only review the first one submitted. All subsequent applications will be rejected.
Okay, so in this case, actually, I want to make sure that I get this first and only application right. Well, how will I know which initiative is the best match for my project?
You can find a detailed description of each of the initiatives available in the application guidelines. There are links to this guidelines at the top of the grant application form. You can also find it under the resource documents on the welcome page, and you can also find it on our NCUA Grants and Loans website. What exactly are you trying to accomplish?
That's a really good question, and there's so much that we actually need to do. If I had to pick the most important thing we're trying to accomplish, I would say we want to roll out our new mobile app that will allow our members to easily apply for loans, deposit their checks, and transfer funds from all over their phone, from their phone.
That's a great project. It would fall under the Digital Services and Cybersecurity Initiative.
Okay, and I see there's some other initiatives here as well. So when I click on them, they actually come up with different activities down below. Which is
Right.
really good.
And the MDI capacity building and underserved outreach initiatives actually include extra text spaces to allow you to provide for more narrative.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to stick with digital services and cybersecurity. So we want to keep our project title pretty open, pretty broad. What do you think is a good title?
Yeah, you want to keep it short and sweet. Based on what you had said before, why don't you just name it New Mobile App?
Okay, that sounds good. And actually, let me pull that up and put it here. All right. Okay, so how much do you think we should actually request?
Well, the request amount should be based on the expected cost to complete your project. So you'll have to support your request later in the budget section, and your request should not exceed the maximum award amount for the initiative you've selected. So in this case, the maximum award amount for the digital services and cybersecurity is $10,000. We also encourage you to please round up to the nearest 100, which will allow us to better distribute the funds overall. Also, you can see the request amount right in the details there if you cannot remember how much the maximum is for.
Got it. So based on our market research, we think the entire project will cost roughly $10,000. So I'll go ahead and put $10,000 here. How do I select project activities and what are project activities?
Sure, these activities are broad categories with examples provided for assistance. They are not exclusive. Your project would fall under the implementation of mobile or online banking features, and you can also select more than one activity. Is there a cybersecurity component to your project?
Yes, actually there is. During our market research, we found that potential vendors included updating our firewall as part of their estimates. They said that this update was needed to safely set up the app. So I'll go ahead and select the implementation and the strengthened cybersecurity.
Great. Next, you'll want to do is enter the dates that you think the project will take place. Note that you won't be reimbursed for any costs that are incurred until after your application is approved and the final grant agreement is signed. Projects should take no longer than 12 months, and typically awards are made at the end of the summer. So plan on the performance period starting on October 1st, 2024 and ending on September 30th, 2025. Oh, also, it's important that I note that eligible pre-award costs incurred on or after April 1st, 2024 can be reimbursed if your credit union is awarded a grant. Just remember, any costs incurred before you are awarded a grant are incurred at your own risk.
Oh, that's really good to know. So since we're near the end of the summer, well, actually, since the end of the summer is just a few months away, we are very excited to get started. If we win a grant award, but what if there are vendor delays and the project ends up taking longer than we anticipated?
If your project is delayed and during the performance period, you can request an extension through our system. This will be explained in the post-award guidelines that are provided to all grantees at the time of the grant approval.
Good, thanks for that information. I went ahead and I entered the October 1st, 2024 start date and the end date of September the 30th, 2025.
Good. So, moving on. The narrative is the most important part of the application. Here is where you make your case for a grant.
Thank you. All right, and actually I did some preparation work before this. We actually went ahead and put into a document a lot of the narrative examples that we wanted to put here. So I'll go to that document now and copy what we think is a really good title for, well, actually a really good project narrative. All right, how about that one?
That's not quite what we're looking for.
Okay, all right, so the lending manager recommended that I try this and see what you think.
Now is the time to be specific. Remember, the narrative must include why you need the grant and how it will benefit the credit union and its members. You want to clearly demonstrate that the project will meet the CDRLF program's objectives. The narrative shows that the applicant has a plan to carry out the project and understands how the project will benefit the underserved population. Each narrative section is given about 2,000 characters to let us know how this grant will impact your credit union and its members. While this isn't a lot of space, it's enough to get your point across.
Oh, I see. Got it. So I'll go ahead and delete this out. It sounds like I should discuss the status quo, and I'm glad I had two narrative examples ready just in case the first one wasn't good enough. All right, let me try this example. And I'll actually put it here instead of what was there before. So this example says, currently members must travel to a branch location and physically enter the location to conduct any business. Due to staff resources, our credit union can only be open for 3 days per week. Our field of membership is rural and many of our members need to commute over an hour to access the branch location.
That's a great start. You clearly show that there's a need, but how are you going to address it with the grant funds?
All right, perfect. So I think we have an answer for that. We typed up how we're going to address it with grant funds, and we're going to go ahead and put that here as well. So the new mobile app will basically allow the credit union to modernize and provide our members access to credit union services no matter where they are, and regardless of whether the branch location is closed or open. Members will be able to make deposits remotely and apply for loans online using the mobile app.
That's awesome. Now, what's the outcome? How will this project benefit the credit union and the underserved community?
Great, glad you asked. So we do have this queued up as well. Let me know what you think about what we drafted here. Okay, so this project will improve our ability to grow and serve our members. Once implemented, we expect the number of members and loans to increase as more people apply online. Also, by modernizing our products and services, we will be able to attract younger, unbanked people to our credit union and away from payday lenders and other predatory financial companies.
You're doing absolutely great. Your narrative will give the reviewer a clear picture of your project and how funding will help the NCUA meet its objective of serving underserved communities.
Great. Now, what is the project impact section for?
You need to provide 2 performance metrics. These are quantifiable outcomes that you can use to demonstrate that your project met its goals and was successful. These performance metrics should support the outcome you described in your narrative above. First, select the 2 metrics that relate directly to your project.
I see. So how about loan growth and members served? In my narrative, I wrote that we expect our mobile app to lead to an increase in loan applications, and I also think that this project could help increase the number of our members.
Perfect.
All right. So what I'll do is I'll select loan growth. I'll put 10 for 10%. And for members served, we expect to go up to 110.
That sounds good, but make sure that your metrics are realistic. The NCUA will use your metrics to measure at your project completion and measure success. Failure to meet these goals at the completion of the project will require an explanation.
Got it. So our team does think that our performance metrics are realistic, but I do have a question. So what does this create a metric field used for?
Create a metric gives you the option to come up with a measure that fits your project. Just be sure to describe what that metric is and how it will be measured.
Oh, I see. Okay, so I think we're good with the 2 metrics we have for now, but I'll keep that in mind for our application next year.
Great. And I want to warn you, the system will allow you to submit an application with only 1 performance metric included. Unfortunately, if you do so, your application will be considered incomplete and not approved. It's crucial that you take the time and read through the application guidelines carefully as you're filling out your application to ensure you're not missing anything. The next section is the budget. Here's where you'll provide us with the details of the expected costs associated with the project. You don't need to have an exact dollar amount. An estimate is fine. What's important here is that you link the line items in your project activities and the budget supports the narrative.
Good point. So we have a couple of estimates from vendors. On average, they told us that it would cost about $8,000 to get the application online. So I'll select the first option, which is implementation of mobile banking feature. And we already had the narrative put together for that particular cost of $8,000. So I'll go ahead and drop that in the budget narrative section. And our narrative says design, testing, and implementation of new mobile application. Average of vendor quotes was used to determine cost. So I'll also add the $8,000 for the cost here, as you mentioned, the total cost, and then the $8,000 that we would like to use the CDRLF grant to cover for that particular expense.
Right, and since this line item is $8,000, the total portion, it will be completely covered by the $10,000 CDRLF grant.
Great. Now, what about the line for cybersecurity costs? How do I add that?
There is an Add New Row button at the bottom of the chart.
Okay, got it. So I'll click on that. So I want to add the cost of the firewall we talked about earlier. I'm not exactly sure how much it'll be, but I do remember the vendor quotes right around $5,000.
So you only have $2,000 left in the mobile app after the mobile app is paid for, so you'll have to cover $3,000 with your own funds.
Got it. Okay, so let me go and get the narrative for the cybersecurity costs. I'm so glad we took the time to prepare ahead of time so that we could just easily copy and paste.
I do recommend you do that, Jimmy, as cyber grants may time you out, and you want to make sure that you do not lose any of your application data.
Oh, good point. Okay, great. All right, so the total estimated project cost for cybersecurity is $5,000, but as you mentioned, since we can only get 10,000 total, we'll put $2,000 here as the total that will be covered by the CDRLF grant.
Right, and now if you look at the bottom of that table, you will see the totals. So your total project cost is $13,000, and your total expense covered by the grant will be $10,000.
Oh, great. Okay. All right, so I think I'm all set with the budget. Moving on to supplemental documentation. I think I remember reading an application guidelines what to put here, but if you could Don't mind if you could just remind me again what to put here in the additional supplemental documentation section?
You can put any information that will support your application. What you should not do is just add additional narrative.
Got it. Okay, so what about those vendor quotes that I talked about earlier? Not only do they have the estimated costs listed, but they also detail the features that the mobile app will cover. Is that something I should put here?
Yeah, one of those vendor quotes would be a great addition to your proposal and strengthen your budget.
Okay, perfect. All right, so it looks like I will click here to upload that file. Here's my vendor quote. I'll choose that file. Oops, sorry. And I'll upload it.
Here's your reminder to save your progress at all times.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. All right. So
Also, before you hit save and proceed, in the narrative section for your supplemental information right there, you could just let us know that you're attaching the vendor quote just so we know what we're looking at.
thank you for that reminder. There we go. All right. So I put vendor quote there. I have my attachment uploaded. Am I good to hit save and proceed now?
You absolutely are.
All right. Got it.
So these are the terms and conditions for the CDRF program. Read through them carefully. You will be held to these terms and conditions if we approve your application.
All righty. All right. Well, lucky for me, I'm a speed reader, so I already read these, and I also saw these in the grant application guidelines. So I think I am good to go. What else do I have to do?
Enter your name and title, and then check the box that indicates that you are a representative of the credit union and that the credit union agrees to manage the grant in accordance with these terms and conditions.
Perfect. All right. So I enter my name, title, and I'll go ahead and certify now. And
Yep,
click
hit save and proceed. We're in the home stretch.
Okay.
So finally, you can review your application now. If you see anything that needs to be changed or updated, you can use those blue links to go back to that section in the application. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can either save it and go back to the welcome page, or you can submit your application. Remember, you can only submit one application. So please read carefully, make sure the application is complete and that you are happy with what you're submitting.
Okay, so I think I'm ready to go ahead and submit. Let me click on submit. See the prompt here. All righty.
Great. I just want to point out that you will receive an email saying that we have received your application, and you'll also have an application ID, which you can see right there. That is the application ID. I would keep note if you have any questions about your application and you want to contact us, please include that application ID so that we can find your application quickly.
Got it. Thank you.
Good luck. We'll review your application and we'll let you know if you're awarded the grant.
Thank you. And I'm so glad I spent time reading the application guidelines and so glad you helped me with the rest of the application.
You're very welcome.
All right, so let's return to the rest of the presentation now. All righty. So coming back to the payments to credit unions. So upon the award of the CDRLF grant, each payment request requires credit unions to provide an outcome summary that reports out on performance metrics. When the project is complete, payment requests should provide evidence of the successful completion of the project and certifications that the grant funds were used accordingly. Generally, credit unions must use their own funds for the approved project according to the terms and conditions of the grant agreement, then request a reimbursement payment for eligible expenses incurred upon the conclusion of the project. However, for awards of $15,000 and greater, credit unions may request partial reimbursements throughout the performance period, though no more frequently than quarterly. Additionally, credit unions with assets below $25 million may request payment in advance of incurring actual project costs. These types of advances must not exceed 25% of the total award amount at any given time, and this is really important, credit unions must include a narrative within their payment request detailing the activities that will be undertaken with those advance funds. Those credit unions will have 90 days to spend those advance funds before submitting a performance report within 30 days.
In addition to this year's CDRLF grant round, we also offer funding opportunities that are available throughout the year. We offer low interest loans, which typically range from $250,000 to $500,000. They are 5-year balloon payment terms with semi-annual interest payments. The current interest rate for these loans is 1.5%.
Got it. Okay. Yes, thank you. Another one of the components of the CDRLF program are the urgent need grants. The urgent need grant application is open year-round, and the NCUA uses urgent need grants to provide financial support to help credit unions respond to unexpected emergencies, including natural disasters, to repair damage to credit unions that is not covered by insurance. Urgent need grants can also be used to pay for certain activities of newly chartered credit unions within their first 5 years of operation. For example, a newly chartered credit union could use an urgent need grant to obtain hardware, software, and other equipment that will assist the credit union in implementing financial services and products, particularly those contained in the chartering business plan approved by the NCUA. Just like with CDRLF loans, any applicants who apply for the 2024 CDRLF grant round can also still apply for urgent need grants. However, the urgent need grant application would need to both meet the requirements for an urgent need grant and be associated with a project that is different from the project that they are proposing for their 2024 round application. We strongly encourage any interested credit unions to review the urgent need grant guidelines on the NCUA's grant webpage. Thank you so much for joining this webinar, and we will now transition it back to Ali for the Q&A portion of this webinar.
Thank you so much, both Josh and Jimmy, for a great presentation today. I particularly enjoyed the demonstration. I thought that that was very helpful, and I appreciate you both doing that. While you were presenting, we did have a few questions come in from viewers. So we are just going to take a couple of minutes to answer a few questions. So I will go ahead now and turn it over to my counterpart on the training team, Ron Good, who will lead us through our question and answer session.
Great. Thank you so much, Ali. And thank you again, Josh and Jimmy, for a great job. Yeah, we got more questions than we'll have time to answer. So I just want to let everybody know that if your question does not get answered during this Q&A session, we have a copy of every question. We will submit it to our speakers, get them to answer it, and then all of these questions and answers will be posted on the LMS that Ali mentioned earlier, with the recording of this webinar, as well as a copy of the PowerPoint slides. So I'm gonna ask two questions, but there were two questions that were very similar. So I'm gonna ask those two together because I think the answers are gonna be about the same. One question was, according to the grant guidelines, there isn't an asset size limitation for the underserved outreach category. However, in the scoring rubric, a credit union that has an asset size higher than 450 million cannot receive a high enough score in step 1 in order to move on. So there is an asset size cap, question mark. And then the second question, very similar. After reviewing the 2024 guidelines, I believe my credit union is too large to apply. We are currently at 800 million in assets. Under step 2, program priority scoring, 0 points, assets greater than 450 million, 5 points for never applying for a loan/grant, 3 points for not receiving a grant, for a total of 8 points. We need 10 points to move to step 3. Is my understanding of the scoring accurate, or are we too large to apply?
Yeah, that is accurate. Unfortunately, we do have limited resources, and so we do try to provide, kind of gear our program towards smaller credit unions. That being said, you are still eligible to apply for our other programs, so you can apply for a CDRLF loan. Those, again, are open year-round. You can apply as soon as you get off this call, and you can receive an award of up to $500,000. And again, the eligible use of those funds are very similar to the CDRLF grant program. So I highly recommend that if you still are interested, that you look into applying for a CDRLF loan.
And that is also true for the underserved outreach category, correct? That was
Correct.
based on the first
Yes.
question. Got it.
Yes.
Okay. And then our final question is, are grant funds restricted to be used only for new initiatives, or can they be used to either reimburse for or help underwrite qualifying initiatives that are already in place and ongoing?
It's geared towards supporting new initiatives. If you would like to expand a current initiative, so for example, if you have a first-time homebuyer program that is already underway, but you would like to expand that program, that is an eligible use of funds. That being said, you will need to discuss what the needs are and how you are not currently meeting the needs of an already existing program, and how the grant funds will help you expand and meet those needs. So we do allow for both the creation of new and the expansion of existing, but we will not fund just a continued operation of the status quo.
Great. Thank you, Josh. And we did get a couple of questions about whether these are loans or grants. So just for clarification, you did talk about loans, but most of what you shared were grants. Grants are not paid back, correct? They're reimbursed.
Yes, that's correct. So grants are not, you do not have to pay grants back. Loans, you do have to pay back. And there's information on, as Josh has mentioned, I've mentioned as well, if you go to the NCUA grants page, there's information there in terms of the most recent NOFO for loans, Notice of Funding Opportunity. And there's more information in the grant guidelines as well. But to answer your question directly, grants you do not have to pay back. Loans you do.
Excellent. That is all the time we have for our Q&A. Thank you both again. I will turn the program back over to my colleague, Allie.
Thank you so much, Ron, for leading us through our Q&A session. You always do a fantastic job, so I just want to take a quick moment to recognize you and say thank you. I will also introduce our upcoming webinars that we have within the next couple of months. Like we've referenced quite a few times here today, we do have an additional webinar on May 22nd on utilizing SAM.gov and grants.gov for additional funding sources. There we will provide a walkthrough of registering on SAM.gov and searching for additional funding on grants.gov. We do also have two additional webinars for the month of June celebrating our MDI Awareness Month. June 5th will focus on what an MDI is, how to designate, and additional resources available to MDI credit unions. And then on June 18th, we will also be hosting a webinar on MDIs, a history of service to their communities, just to review how they're able to serve their communities and the different programs that they've been able to offer. We also have a busy time coming up here within CURE for the next couple of months. MDI Awareness Month will be celebrated throughout the entire month of June 2024 with different activities planned every single day of the month. And then, of course, we have our 2024 CDRLF grant round that just opened yesterday and will remain open through July 1st, 2024. Like mentioned earlier today, however, please make sure if you have any questions on your applications, you get those questions in, by June 24th, 2024. I'm also happy to announce that registration has opened for the 2024 DEI Summit. This will be hosted by the Office of Minority Women Inclusion and will be held in Minneapolis, Minnesota on July 9th through 11th, 2024. If you are interested in registering, I encourage you to please use this QR code that we have attached in our PowerPoint presentation to go ahead and register and attend this fantastic summit. I know they have a great agenda planned. Like Ron mentioned throughout our question and answer session, and as I mentioned earlier, we do have our learning management system that is available for free to all credit union employees and volunteers. We have over 200 courses, and it is a fantastic resource to be able to learn and grow and expand your credit union. This presentation will be available within 2 weeks, closed captioned, and a copy of the slides will also be available and the remaining questions we were not able to answer. It is, again, completely free, so I highly encourage the use of this fantastic resource. If you are looking at registering, please use our QR code attached in this presentation to be able to go directly to our registration page. Closing out our webinar today, I have included 2 slides with contact information. This first slide has contact information for our Office of Consumer Access. Consumer Access will be able to assist you with any questions regarding chartering or field of membership expansion, any general questions regarding the credit union industry. They are there to support you. So please feel free to reach out to them via email or phone, just as we've provided here with that contact information. And lastly, I have the contact information for the Resources Division. The Resources Division consists of our Grants and Loans team, who joined me today for a fantastic presentation on the CDRLF grant round. It also consists of the training team, consists of myself and Ron, who are able to assist here today as well, and our MDI preservation program. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and contact us via email or phone as well, and we are happy to assist. I do also want to take a moment to thank our support team that has been here with us today. Franz, who has always been here to support us with our webinar. We really appreciate him and everything that he does, as well as our team that joined us virtually, Ron, Tessia, Jasmine, and Martha for attending our webinar today. Thank you so much for your assistance with our webinar. And I want to thank you, our viewers, as well for taking the time to join us today. I hope you found this webinar very helpful and informative, and please feel free to reach out to us if you have any additional questions. But I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day and a great weekend. Thank you.